Here we are. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Today we are going to present 8 different Italian producers during a session of 2 hours virtual tasting. We are all connected thanks to this kind of new technology that we are using. The idea is to show the new vintages on the market and to present maybe some producers that you don't know or you didn't have still the chance to taste these new vintages. Just a few words on winescritic.com, which is the company I founded in 2019, is a company that tastes 1,000 Italian wines per year. And in 2 years, we tasted more than 11,000 Italian wines. The idea, what we look into the wines is about the beauty, the finesse, the personality and the character of the wines. For sure, like you heard many times, preserve characteristic and try to show the beauty of the terroir. So we don't look for wine sometimes really over extracted, but we look for balance and harmony and good quality and the perception also of the good quality of the matrix. So what we like in the wines is for sure always when people are precise making them. First, to become a wine critic, I am an enologist, I'm a winemaker. I used to work a little bit around the world also. And then what is really important is the wine needs to be precise. And I think what maybe we can agree all together in the end of this tasting should be something like that. So to understand that the wines are correct and the people knows where to put the hand in vineyards before and then in cellar. But let's start right now because we have already connected with us Patrizia from the Planeta Winery. Planeta is a story of innovation and tradition. After establishing the first winery at Ulmo in 1994, the family continued to search for many years the best spot on the island to make a good production of different terroir, but mostly with autochthon grapes, but not only, also with international variety. Patrizia, I would like to give you the possibility to tell us more about the Planeta estate. Feel you free to start where you want, and for sure also tasting the 2 wines we have in front of us.
Grazie Raffaele. Hello everybody. Nice to meet you. Directly connecting from the Etna, from the middle of a huge storm. So if you lose me, don't panic. I will be back somehow. Well, yes, thank you for the short presentation. It is actually kind of like a viticultural trip what the family is realizing in the last 30 years, we can say. I joined them 16 years ago as a winemaker, and actually my role was to start up these new projects. So I've been working in Noto and Vittoria, Etna and Capomilazzo. I think they've been trying to send me further and further from Menfi, from the central place. But actually this is the reason why I came to work with them for 6 months and I'm still here. Something happened. This kind of incredible energy and investment and research and development, what they've been following, was something which, you know, just took me and and made me stay. The new estates, actually, as you greatly mentioned, in Menfi, we are working also with international varieties. The new estates were always ideated with the aim of finding the best spot for certain local varieties. This is how Bonivini was born for the Nero d'Avola mainly. This is how Dorilli was developed for the Cerasuolo. And then we came up to the Etna. On the Etna, we started to look for a land from Alessio started from 2002, 2003. And we found this first spot where we are tasting from today in 2006. This is in Sharanova. It's on the northern slopes of the Etna. 12 terraces in the beginning, between 810 and 900 meters above sea level. On one eruption. That's how the wines are gaining their name from, because this was one very important eruption on the northern slope between 1614 and 1624. The Etna was active for 10 years. It was throwing out material which came down till more or less 800 meters. We are in the last part of this slope, and in certain points of the vineyard, if you have the chance to come to visit, there are some cuts where you can exactly see what 400 years have been, in 400 years, what has been created. There is an old agricultural soil layer, and there is the new one above, 1 meter and 1.5 meters of lava, which has covered the old one. And now we can work again on these spots. It was, we can exactly see that it was worked also before this eruption, because there is this smaller sized stone cover, which has been then overwhelmed by the lava from that century there. We started here, and the aim of Alessio, one of the cousins, the founders of the company, was he was dreaming about a big white. So from the first 12 terraces where we could plant to, we planted 9 in Caricante, 1 in Nerello Mascarese, just to see, as we usually do. Then 1 in Riesling, and I will tell you why, and 1 in Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir was an idea which was already existing on the Etna for a century. There is a place called Castello di Solicchiata. They've been already producing Pinot Noir in the 19th century. But also Takis was, for example, a supporter of the Pinot on the Etna. So that was a dedication of this one terrace. Riesling was more a play from our side. There is no proper Riesling plantations on the mountain, but when we've seen the lands prepared, it was in the end of November, in a day like this, more or less. It was all wet, dark, volcanic stones obviously around. So we said, where else in Sicily Riesling could find an interesting spot, if not up here on the Etna. But our main focus was the Caricante, as I said before, which is, nowadays we speak a lot about the Caricante, but it's still a minor variety. We are arriving now to around 20% of the surface. There were a few wines which were great examples of Caricante, but more the variety was spread in the middle of the traditional old vineyards. It was mixed together with the Nerello Mascarese and with all the other local varieties. So there was not a precise profile of the Caricante, also because there was a tradition to pick quite early. And nowadays when we observe, we can understand exactly why, because then October is a quite hectic month from the meteorological point of view. So pushing out the harvest and taking it obviously to a little bit of a risk made us understand a totally different profile of the Caricante. Today, the wine what you have in your glass, the Edizione 1614 Caricante, is the vintage 2018. It's 90% of Caricante and 10% of Riesling. But when people say that they feel the Riesling, myself, who I'm working with the wine, I always say that, yes, but you don't yet exactly know the pure Caricante profile. The Caricante itself has also an aromatic profile, which is arriving in the last days. So often we are pushing out the harvest, in this case, up to the 1st of November also. Not this year. This year was warmer in the summer up here and it was quite dry. So we finished picking with the Caricante on the 16th of October. It's only stainless steel. It's a single estate wine. The original, actually the percentage between the Caricante and the Riesling is the original percentage, as we shared the plantation in these terraces.
I think we lost you, Patrizia. I don't know if our professional maybe has the same problem. So I can jump in your conversation and your comments, tasting the white that we have in front of us. So the Caricante, like Patrizia was saying, it's only stainless. You can preserve all the characteristic that you have it. Actually, there is for sure a connection, you know, the mines bring you also to think some Riesling, because there is this hydrocarburic profile that reminds you lots of complexity and lots of character in this wine. What I like it is, like we said in the beginning, this is precise nose for me. It's rich. Maybe you can understand from the beginning with how much sun there is inside, you know, because there are warm characteristic, but you can also have a perception that this is a Mediterranean vintage. The 2019, there was actually, we had lots of rain, all the peninsula long from the north to the south, but the quality of the grapes was important because people needed to go in the vineyards from the beginning of May, starting to work and making a lots of green harvest, and then for sure also putting down some grapes to make the best quality and to have the best condition then in the winery. The wine has a beautiful texture, is quite layered, and what I really enjoyed of this sip is absolutely the tension and the good verticality. I'm sure you heard a lot also about this term, about the verticality and you know, the tension of this wine. But actually you can have the perception that it goes on your palate for at least 20-30 seconds, and which is impressive for a white. Plus talking about a white wine made on the Etna Vulcano. The other wine is the Nerello Mascalese. So we are tasting together the two wines of the estate made in Etna. Nerello Mascalese is the other grape variety, like we said. For the white, they have a lots of Caricante. And Nerello Mascalese is actually one of the most elegant indigenous grape that we discovered, let's say, 10-15 years ago, thanks a great mind which was bringing this wine outside Italy and starting to understand the great potential it has. It's still something new. We need to see how it will age during the year, because lots of people are saying, like, as you know for sure, this can be the Barolo of South Italy. We will see, but for now, what is important, we can enjoy and we can understand how great is this tasting, because the wine has a nice profile, lots of identity, red passion fruits and flower character. And this again, you can feel is completely well done and harmonic from the beginning.
Can I ask a question about the white?
Sorry, can you repeat again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I would like to ask how is the altitude of the white wine, and where is that acidity coming from? How high up the Etna you plant the Gargante?
Okay, Patrizia, is you back now?
Yes. Yes, okay. I'm back. I switched off the camera because I went to my phone's okay. Internet. Sorry, I think the storm was stronger than us.
Don't worry. Go ahead.
The altitude, Tobias.
No, nothing, Patrizia. Can you hear us? This was, you know, not easy in November. It was better for us in Tuscany, but as Patrizia was saying, is not the best condition there. If you can type us the answer, Patrizia, we can see also in chat. So we can answer to Tobias. I think a good acidity, they are able to keep it, but will be better if Patrizia can confirm us. They are able to keep it because there is a great altitude, but not only is important the thermic excursion between day and night. This is a classic, but also the kind of the soil that they have there, talking a lots of sand soil, it give you the opportunity to better keep the freshness, because as you know, the sand soil doesn't keep a lot of water. So actually, they keep what they need, and then they try to close always the stomy is the word in Italian. I don't know how to explain in English. It's like the part on the bottom of the leaf. So when they close it, they can keep actually the acidity and the freshness. And for sure, also try to keep a lot of polyphenolic part in the plants. This is actually a little bit trying to answer the question, but if also Patrizia, when we be able, can tell us more, will be for sure better. If there are more questions.
Sorry, Raffaele, there is the answer from Patrizia. So the altitude is about 870 meters from the Caricante, and the acidity from 10% of Riesling. So this is the answer from Patrizia. Okay, so perfect. This is interesting. The 10% of Riesling for sure gives something, and is a part of acidity, because maybe they can also harvest it a little bit before. The Caricante, they need to wait a little bit more, and the Riesling can be harvested. Okay, so let's go ahead with the next winery. You can remember there is always the chat, and there is Paolo can make comments and answer the question. And thank you very much, Tobias, for the question. So let's go ahead with the next producers, which is Cantina Tramin. Cantina Tramin was founded in 1898, and today is one of the most representative white wines producers in Italy, we can see. Their vineyards are located between 250 meters and 850 meters above the sea level. And there are 300 small growers that owns the part of the 260 hectares. Connected with us, there is Sigrid this morning that can tell us more about the winery and the two wines we are going to taste.
Hello. Hallo nach München und Zürich aus Südtirol, aus Tramin. Our winery's name is Cantina Tramin, and we are located in a small village that is called Tramin, which is said to be the cradle of Gewürztraminer, as the name of the variety already suggests, even though the Alsatians aren't too happy about this interpretation. In fact, there are various interpretations about the origin of this grape variety, but one thing is sure, Gewürztraminer is our most important variety of all. But today we're not tasting Gewürztraminer, we're tasting another variety, a white variety, on which we've focused for the last few years. As Raffaele already said, our winery is a cooperative. We have today 300 little producers who on average own less than 1 hectare per person. So even though we produce quite a lot of wines, 1.9 million, and this might sound industrial, it's actually not, because you still have to think that there are all those little producers taking care of the vineyards. And my mother is one of those producers, and I know how much work she puts in her little vineyard. In fact, that we are a cooperative is very helpful for our wine production, because we know that all our grapes are very well cared for. And obviously, as the quantities our producers produce are so little, they try to produce the best possible quality in order to allow us to produce excellent wines. As I said, we're located in Alto Adige, south of Bolzano. Most of you might have visited the area, and so you know that we are in the middle of the Italian Dolomites. We're surrounded by the mountains. The main characteristics of our white wines are the freshness, the crispiness, the acidity, and minerality. And the acidity, I try to anticipate the question about acidity, is given in our wines thanks to the diurnal temperature variation that we have. In fact, Alto Adige benefits from a very nice sunny weather. We have 300 days of sunshine on average. And we also benefit from the winds from Lake Garda that start blowing in the afternoon. So thanks to those winds, temperatures start dropping in the afternoon. And then when the sun sets and the winds from the mountains start blowing, temperature drops again. So at times we have a temperature difference of up to 20 degrees Celsius. We're a cooperative. We produce many different grape varieties, about 13 different ones. And today we're trying two of the selection wines of Cantina Tramin. One is a white, Troy Chardonnay Riserva, and the other one is Loam, a Cabernet Merlot Riserva.
Do you want to taste the wines, Sigrid, or do you prefer I spend some words about them?
I'll let you spend some words on those.
I will try it. Okay. So tasting Troy, as you can see, the 2018 vintage, again, it shows really, really well because there is a lots of energy. Sometimes, you know, people thought there will be maybe vineyards a little bit subtle and too much delicate, but in this case, you can see how much quantity and energy of material there is in the glass. This is like what I call a decadent style. There is a lots of dried flowers. There is something that reminds me a bohemian character. So like a wine that you need to keep your time to understand it. It's a wine that completely changed after 10 minutes in the glass. It's a wine that actually give you a lots of remind.
Usually Troy is very timid on the nose at first, and then when you leave it in the glass, it opens like a flower. So sometimes I see those surprised faces of people who had to just smell it, and then because I told them to wait, re-smelled it after like 5 minutes, and they're like, wow, it has really opened in this short amount of time. Just a few words on this wine. This is the only white of ours that ages in barrique barrels, because we usually use either stainless steel or big oak casks for the whites. In this case, we wanted to produce an oak Chardonnay in the traditional sense of the word, but we didn't want to produce a fat Chardonnay. So the aim was to produce an Alpine style Chardonnay that would remind people of the snow-covered mountains of Alto Adige, or of our winemaker. I always say our winemaker, he's very sporty. He's 1.90 m something. And so we wanted to create a Chardonnay that was muscular and lean and Alpine and not fat. And I think, well, obviously you smell the oak on the nose, because this wine spends 11 months in barrique barrels, followed by 22 months of stainless steel to kind of wash off the oak. So you obviously smell the oak aging on the nose, but then you get all the freshness and on the palate, which is quite a contradiction, a bit surprising even. And as well, you get a lot of exotic notes as well on the palate. So I think are the main characteristics of this fantastic white wine.
Sigrid, when it was produced for the first time, Troy?
Well, actually, the first vintage was 2015. And basically the story was we already had a blend called Stone, which some of you might know, which consists mainly of Chardonnay. And we saw, or our winemaker recognized that the Chardonnay that we were producing in those vineyards proved to be very extraordinary. So he decided to make a single vineyard Chardonnay. And so we basically took 2 vineyards that were once used for Stone to produce our Troy Chardonnay Reserve. So this is the 4th vintage that has been released.
So Sigrid, are you saying now your Soan is less good?
No, Stone is fantastic, but Stone is,
Okay.
you know, this is the big brother. Also price-wise, you know, Stone is it's already a quite pricey wine because it's 20, 24, 25 euros, depending on where you buy it. But people are probably willing to spend that much money on a regular basis. Troy is a wine for a special occasion. It costs 3 times as much. So I say this is the bigger, Stone's bigger brother.
Absolutely.
This is a wine you won't drink every day.
Absolutely. No, I was kidding because actually Stone, I think, is one of the best examples we have of blend in Alto Adige. It's not easy to blend your varieties, to be honest, because sometimes in a blind tasting, I always prefer the single varieties.
Because
But
they're easier to recognize and you know what you get in the glass.
Yes, and I think also it's really not easy to match them. To be honest, in Tuscany, they are a professor making the blend with international varieties, for example, but with the white grapes is not easy. It's the same also in South Italy, thinking about some region, different region. It's really not simple to blend Greco with the Fiano and with the Falanghina, to be honest.
Because you have to find the right balance.
Yes, and there is still a lot to make on them. I had another question. What do you think about, to age the wines? You have an incredible label made in, yes, this is Troy.
Yes, exactly. So it's silvery and gold, and the silver recalls the snow-covered mountains of Alto Adige. So even on the label, you recognize how precious the wine is. Sorry.
No, absolutely.
I've lost you.
Absolutely. I was saying, I would like to spend just a word on your project Epocale. Do you think you can repeat something also with a dried wine and bringing them in the mountain?
That is a question for our winemaker. He's so full of ideas, and he's doing so many things down in his cellar. I don't think that there is a plan to do something in the mine with the dry wine, because as you know, the first vintage of Epocale that was awarded with 100 Parker points had a very high residual sugar. Around 120 grams, which basically was a mistake. They didn't really intend the residual sugar to be so high, but then they found out and they said, well, okay, let's leave it like this. But then in the following vintages had a much lower residual sugar, around 30 grams. And then with time passing, our winemaker discovered that actually the wines age better if they have a higher residual sugar. So he's gone up with a residual sugar again. So I think it would be very difficult that we start an experiment in the mine with dry white.
No, just because I think it's a huge idea, not only of marketing, because as you can imagine in the mine, if there is some people who doesn't know, they aged this wine called Epocale in the mine. It was more than 2,200 meters. Where there were all the conditions to age the wines. So, I mean, of course, that one has residual sugar. In this case, maybe with the dried wines, you can have another aging. And why not? Maybe it can be more approachable for more people. instead, you know, with the specific wine like that one. But it's just, you know, a curiosity for you. When you bring there some wines, you say, you know what, I would like to put 20 bottles there.
I'll pass the idea on to our winemaker.
Okay.
But even so, our wines of the selection range, which are the ones, the black ones with the white label, have a very huge aging potential. We've just recently tasted brought to Merano Wine Festival the Nussbaumer Gewürztraminer 2006 vintage, and it was quite extraordinary. So, but anyhow, I'll tell Willy about your suggestion to bring some additional wines in the.
No, absolutely, no. And tasting the Loam, which is a blend of Cabernet and Merlot. This is a Riserva 2018, so we are staying on the same vintage. You can see how much they waited a little bit more to pick up the grapes. Even if it was like a rainy vintage, like we said, in this case, you have all the maturity, all the ripe fruits that we needed. This is important to ripe all the polyphenolic part or the tannins, and to have for sure also anthocyanic part.
So Loam is, well, first of all, Loam, well, our German speakers might recognize the original meaning of the word. Loam is a German dialect for lame, so Loam in English, obviously. We've given this wine this name because we have the vineyards where the Cabernet Sauvignon is planted have very loamy soils. They're also the lowest vineyards that we have. Raffaele said at the very beginning that our vineyards are located between 250 and 850 meters of altitude. The Cabernet Sauvignon grapes are located at 250, and they have full exposure to the sun, so it's mainly southeast and south. So thanks to this position and the loamy soils that save all of the heat during the day and release it to the vines during the night, the Cabernet Sauvignon can reach full maturity in an area where a Bordeaux blend wouldn't otherwise be possible. And this is kind of an Geheimtipp. Well, not many Italians know that we produce this blend, because when they look for blends like these, they look towards Tuscany. But many of our German and Austrian tourists who come to visit us at the winery very regularly have come to know and love this wine, which is really very incredible, has very soft tannins as it ages, and yeah.
Sigrid, is this just absolutely? Is this just a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot?
There's also a little bit of about 25% of Cabernet Franc.
Oh, Franc. Okay, that's nice. There is some character, vegetal character too, which give more, I think, identity and complexity.
Yeah, it makes it a bit more, a bit edgier, not too mellow, not too jammy. Yeah, it gives it a kind of an edge.
It is aging in a big cask?
Partly in barrique barrels, so for 12 months in barrique barrels, followed by 6 months in big oak casks, and then 6 months in the bottle. So
in the bottle before
24 months, hence the Riserva appellation for this wine.
Okay, if there are questions for Ingrid, she will be with us. And maybe I can ask you something more, Sigrid, before to leave. How is going, your Loam in the different market? So like you said, it's not really easy, maybe, because like an idea of blend, sometimes people think other area. But actually, the red wines made in Südtirol, in Alto Adige, are always so good to drink from the beginning.
Well, we sell this wine very well in on the German market, on the Swiss market, and on the Austrian market, because those markets know Cantina Tramin as a red wine producer. Because until the mid 80s, we've produced mainly, well, it was Schiava, so Fernach, and not very high quality Fernach. And then we've started planting international grape varieties, because there was a new generation of winemakers came to work at the wineries in Alto Adige, and they were convinced that Alto Adige had to focus on quality rather than on quantity. So for those markets, we're still more red wine producers than white wine producers. And so there we don't have much difficulty selling this wine on those markets, and we don't produce so many bottles of this wine, so just about 15,000, which might sound a lot to you, but we produce much more of other
labels.
bottles. Exactly.
Sigrid, there is a question from Tobias talking about the blend. Do you know exactly the blend? To have an idea of the percentage, or to know if there is more Merlot or more Cab?
It's 40% Cabernet Sauvignon, then it's 35% Merlot and 25 Cabernet.
Oh, perfect. Also, Martin just replied in the chat. He knew perfectly. Okay, Sigrid, thank you very much. We will fly in Tuscany with the next producers. Stay with us if you can. Maybe in the end we can have space for the last comments from our professional. See you soon. Next producers is Rocca di Castagnoli. We had the pleasure to present the wines in the previous date with Angelo, but today is connected with us Rolando. Rocca di Castagnoli is a medieval fortress of the 10th century. We are located in the village of Gaiole in Chianti. They own 90 hectares of vineyards and more of lands. Mostly they produce, of course, and they grow, of course, Sangiovese, Canaiolo, Colorino, and lots of indigenous grapes varieties. Rolando, it's up to you to better explain the story of Rocca di Castagnoli, and for sure tasting the two wines together.
Hello, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Rocca di Castagnoli is located in Gaiole in Chianti, in the east part of Chianti Classico appellation, in the one area more or less around of 800 hectares, where inside have wooden area, grapes for wine, and olive oil trip. A very classic estate of Chianti Classico appellation. Born the state, the organization born the first step in the year 1730, when the most rich family from Florence
we have the same problem with Rolando. Rolando, is not perfect, your connection. Are you able to hear us?
The state and begin to organization in a different two. Hello?
Yes, Rolando, we lost you for 30 seconds.
Okay, now it's okay?
It's better, yeah.
It's better. So begin for the first organization of the 1730 year, when this family from Florence, Tempi, bought all the area, 800 hectares, 850 hectares, the total, the Rocca di Castagnoli estate, where inside have planted grapes for wine, 75 hectares, and 15 hectares of olive oil trip. The other part is the wooden area. It's a very green park around of 400 to 600 meters of Gaiole in Chianti area, but the property of the wood area stained your level at 800 meters. Is one of the most older part where begin the history of the Chianti appellation, And for this time, after the Tempi family, for two different changement of the property, now is 45 years old, and 45 is a year where the family of Kali bought the estate in 1981 and invest to rebuilding all the center of the castle, because the Rocca is one fortification area building around more or less of the 900 years. Is a very long history, and all the house around of the estate, where now we have agriturismo for rooms and the flat for guests, one wine shop, and the cellar, and the organization, country organization. Is one of the most older part where begin the history. Very old vineyards as Stielle, Poggiafrati, where we produce a single cru, where we produce the top category Chianti Classico appellation. 63 hectares is the vineyards dedicated to produce Chianti Classico. And the Rocca di Castagnoli, I repeat, is 100% oriented to the indigenous grapes and Grande and the Chianti Classico appellation grapes. Sangiovese, but inside also Canaiolo, Colorino grapes is the variety we produce. Also one just 3 hectares where we planted this Cabernet Sauvignon at the moment, where we produce 100% of Cabernet Sauvignon.
Rolando, tasting the two wines side by side. The first one is a blend, no? There is for sure.
It's a blend. The first one is the Chianti Classico 2019. Is 90% is the Sangiovese and 10% is a mix of 5 and 5 more or less of Colorino and the Canaiolo grapes. Is a wine.
About the identity and the personality, but more, what can give you the small percentage of Colorino and Canaiolo?
The Canaiolo exalting the freshness, the acidity of the wine for a part. The Colorino permit to balance the one good extraction in terms of the color, but at the same time don't change, but exalting the characteristic of the Sangiovese grapes. Is two indigenous grapes born, I think, absolutely to exalting for a part the blending with the Sangiovese grapes, because it help to have more tannic around the struttura, more freshness and more longevity of the wines. This is why we use also a repeat to replant the Canaiolo and the Colorino grapes. Second step, we use also for the Canaiolo. Now we use also for a different project too, for vinification, 100% of Canaiolo wines. But this is a new history for next time, for next situation. Chianti Classico, repeat, is in the total of the red grapes is 63 hectares planted, where we have different typology of the altitude of the grapes to 400 meters to 600 meters, repeat, where the terroir is very typical of the Chianti appellation, rich of stone, rich of galestro stone, and also rich of calcareum stone. Is our Chianti Classico is the blend of all the vineyards around of the castle, and have a maturation in a big oak, typical of Chianti Classico of 23, 32, 54 hectolitri tanks in barrel, and very typical of Chianti Classico appellation for about 15 months. After the maturation in oak, we have the blending, and minimum 6 months in the bottle before to exit. We begin the conversation in organic cultura, in organic production in the year 2014, and now of all the vintage after 2017 have the organic certification. If you want to begin to try the Chianti Classico, please.
Absolutely, Rolando. What I was thinking, what I like of this Chianti Classico 2019 a lot is how much is genuine, is digestive. It's a wine that you can drink half a bottle of wines and then you make it, maybe can understand that you already drank too much. But it's about quality, of the fruit and it's
Yes.
about the quality of working with good materials, good technology, of course, in cellar. And you don't need to add a lot, because what I understood during my past 8 years of experience is that Sangiovese doesn't want anything. Just needs to be fresh.
Frank speaking, my philosophy, you know, Raffaele, is to help the grapes to explain your terroir, your idea of wines of Chianti Classico, and no need to have a sophisticated method in the cellar, but I speaking with my cellar workmen to help to exalting the wine, not to change the structure of the wine. So fruity, elegant, freshness. This is the characteristic of the regular Chianti Classico, and we produce not too much, but 200,000 bottles of this selection. The same of the first bottle and of the last bottle, totally. And Frank speaking, is as you see the nose, you see cherries fruity, you see this very impact in terms of freshness. You think you just understand the elegance of the drinkable impact of the wine. The second is one absolutely gastronomy wine, because the freshness, the elegance of this wine permit one combination of food totally different terms. Not important to use one correct correct temperature for the service. This is a wine where I suggest to serve it in the summer, the same of the winter at 18 degrees, no more. Where explain the evolution of the bottle in the glass during the lunch or the dinner, where you use to have a combination fantastic to the wines.
Rolando, Rocca di Castagnoli is working a lot in the last period also with the concrete vats. In this case, there was an aging in a small part with the concrete vats.
You speak about of the
in general, but also in Chianti Classico. What is your protocol?
We have a good relationship for all the area, and inside of the area represented, I think, one of the preparing in terms of the original characteristic of the Chianti Classico. We don't buy any grapes, we don't buy any wines, we don't buy anything. 100% all the wines and the production we use is 100% made from the cellar. This is the philosophy of the
No, I was asking, absolutely. This we were on this for sure from the beginning. I was asking, the aging of the wines, if there was also the concrete. Did you use concrete vats, cemento?
Yes, we use part of especially for the selection, Reserva, Stielle, and also added to very little selection we experimented that we use now. But we are using the cemento tanks and because I think too much inox still don't help to have a good maturation before the bottling the wines, just for the fermentation. And when exit the fermentation, go the oak and come back. Before, I prefer to use the tanks of cemento tanks for maturation of the wines before to bottling. Frank speaking, before is my idea. But the wine, when don't come back in inox style, have less stress, have more around tannic structure, more round and more elegant. I think because too much 6 months again in still. The wine is a little bit more don't have the tannics different, more strong, but the cement permit to have a more round drinkable approach apport of the wines. If you test the regular Chianti Classico, this is 2019 is at the moment is very lovely to drink 6 months in the bottle before after the bottling is the minimum time, but generally we exit at the moment we don't have any bottle of 2020 in the market because our wines are is the high level, need to have more times in the oak, but more time in the bottle before to exit.
I had the samples, Rolando, since yesterday opened. Today is just perfect. You know, it didn't miss anything. It's still there is still lots of fruits and energy like we want to find in your wines. Talking about Stielle from the 2010 vintage, it became a Gran Selezione of the winery, right?
Yes. Stielle born in the first label of Stielle is in 1985, when exit for a very typical Super Tuscany Super Tuscan, because it's a blend born for a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon 30% and Sangiovese 70%. In the time 2007, we decided to exit totally the Cabernet Sauvignon of the blend, and Stielle remain 100% Sangiovese, GT Toscana Sangiovese. In 2010, exit the new appellation of Chianti Classico Gran Selezione is our idea, the idea of the family owner, to exalting our focus of the Chianti Classico appellation. I want to because is for us is the business, but also is the idea to produce around the same in the area of Chianti Classico appellation, where the most historic part, where begin the history of the Chianti Classico, dedicate the top category of Chianti Classico born in this time to the Chianti Classico appellation. And 2010 first certification Gran Selezione of Chianti Classico. Stielle is a single area. The name, remember, of a star, because the medieval time the people thinks in the night the grapes see the star in because at this position is totally in the top of this hill named the Stielle 2, 9 hectares planted, where the maturation of the grapes is 580 meters of the level of the sea, permit to have one incredible thermic excursion and one incredible maturation, more long, but one complete maturation of the grapes. Frank speaking, the changement of the Italian and generally weather, where the temperature in the summer is anytime more high, and where the rain moment is very difficult, and at this level of our grapes we don't have at the moment the problem, because also, and the second step is help to have one possibility to have wines more complete maturation, more elegant wines, but don't have the problem of sur-maturation grapes. So is the excursion thermic repeat, and because sometimes so last the vintage 2021, for example, in the after part of July, begin one very nice rain day, where permit one evolution incredible of the maturation of the grapes. Is one part of the Chianti Classico where you have now very perfect long maturation, but at the same time, for the other hand, one incredible balancement in terms of the tannic structure and in terms of the elegance of the wines. With drinkable approach is the same characteristic of this 100% Sangiovese Gran Selezione. If you see the nose, absolutely the concentration of the wines is totally different. It's one selection where we produce no more of 15,000-20,000 bottles in 9 hectares planted. If possible, to in the window of my office is I can change the position of the computer. You can see one exposition incredible, because now this morning a little bit sunny, and you see now the color incredible for the vineyards and the wooden area and the Olive Oil trip around is absolutely one particular exposition. 2017 is one vintage very difficult, where the temperature is very hard. Everybody know the difficulty of 2017, but this wine is one expression of one balancement of the maturation. Incredible, I think, for the vintage.
Rolando, you need to make a good invitation to everyone to see your vineyards and a beautiful landscape we have in Chianti Classico. So just closing up this tasting of Stiele 17, like you said, I think it's a huge work for the difficult harvest. I think it's not so far away from the great 16 you produced. It means, that you know really well your vineyards and you know really well how to work on them. When harvest them, when you need to sacrifice a little bit of production that was already low after the small problem of frost and the dry season. But, the vineyards, I used to say always that 25 years ago, the wine were not ripe enough. So the vineyards, when you work well, are able to manage also a difficult vintage and to understand when there is no water, they need, to be organized to survive in the best condition. So actually, the plants.
Thank you, Raffaele. My idea is I began to work in Rocca di Castagnoli 19 years ago. But in these 19 years, the situation of Rocca di Castagnoli is totally changed. We have replanted, there have investment a lot in the cellar, in the winery, in the vineyards, especially. But at the same time, also this changement of the other permits now to explain a different match totally for the terms of quality of the grapes and the wines in vinification, because I try in a one old file in my computer in the one very nice consideration about of the characteristic of the grapes before to harvest to 1990 to 1999, where the agronomists of this time have analysis the evolution of the maturation of the grapes of this time before to go to the harvest. So the acidity, the extraction of the sugar product, the evolution of the wine permitted to understand also where is the evolution of the other outside, because in this time 90, 91, 92, 93, the maximum of sugar inside is before to harvest is around of 18 sugar graded sugar, but now 21, 22. To see this is then one evolution of the area.
You were saying
don't change.
You were saying, Rolando, you were saying 18 Babbo degrees, so it's around more or less 180, 190 grams per liter of sugar. Now it's 240, 250. For sure, it's changed.
This is only one, but also you understand that the maturation in terms of polyphenol, anthocyani maturation is totally different.
Completely different.
And totally different. Where now we have one harmonic maturation of the grapes, and you have the opportunity to drink the round wine, the expression of the Sangiovese for one expression totally different respect to
when you think you understand.
This is not my job, but the job of the world.
In our world, when you think you understand something, you need to study and to change again, because it's completely
I think it's very important. Now the new replanted, we have the opportunity, the new replanting of the grapes, moving to 400 metri to 700 more high level too, because I want to prepare the evolution for next time, for the next 20 years too, when all the vineyards of Rocca di Castagnoli grapes stay in a part more, not now 400 to 600. Next 20 years is 600 to 800 meters to the level. We have the opportunity because we have 850 hectare in the total. Is one big winery where I have a big terroir, and it's possible to have the opportunity to remain at top category wines.
Rolando, sorry to interrupt you. We still have 30 seconds and no more to answer a question from Martin. It was a really good question. What is going on with the UGA on the label? for now is applied only to the village. Am I wrong?
Yes.
But we are waiting.
This is the regular Chianti Classico. Is a change 2 years ago. We changed all the line, the restyling of the label, and this is the castle where is the center of the organization of Rocca di Castagnoli estate, and there is a representation of the castle building in the year 900 year, and there is one reproduction of the center of the
Rolando,
Stiele is the vineyards represented.
See, but Rolando, now you are allowed to put on the label of Chianti Classico also the commune. You can type, you can write Gaiola in Chianti. But can you do the same also in Gran Selezione?
Yes, Gran Selezione is a totally 100% single Gaiola in Chianti area and a single vineyard too.
Lo puoi scrivere il comune Gaiola in Chianti sulla Gran Selezione? Okay, so it's not applied only for
no.
Chianti
It's
Classico.
possible.
Okay.
It's possible. Now the new appellation, the evolution of the regulation of the consortium of Chianti Classico approve one just for the Gran Selezione to using the area where made the wine.
And you can decide.
The grapes.
And the grapes. You can decide if right or not.
We decided to use.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
And I decide to use it and to print it because it's totally our core business. We don't have any other part. We have a separated production from Castellina and Chianti, you know, but it's a different brand, it's a different area where we produce different grapes. But look, all is in the vineyards in the cellar, totally separated to the grapes of Gaiola.
Rolando, thank you very much. If there are more questions, our professional can type us in chat. So stay with us if you can, and let's taste lots of good wines. Next producers is La Rasina. La Rasina is a family tradition. Today is led by Marco Mantengoli. They owns a land of 50 hectares of organic certified land, and in particular way 14 hectares of vineyards. Most of them are grown with Sangiovese grapes. Today is connected with us Jens.
Hello.
Hi Jens.
Hi Rafa, thank you again for including us.
Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, yeah, 14 hectares, La Rasina, mid-size property in the 4th generation in Montalcino. Actually, it is 100% Sangiovese, not only most of it, we are 100% Sangiovese producer. And that can be connected back to the long tradition in this family. So where we know Brunello mostly as of Biondi Santi, and he is heralded as the kickoff for Brunello bottling. Actually, agriculture existed in Montalcino way before Mr. Biondi Santi, and wine was produced for a long time in this area. What is particular to know in order to understand the traditional Mantengoli family and how they're operating is that Montalcino was to fall away for a 1 day's horseback ride to be reached from Florence or from Rome. So whereas the other appellations in Tuscany were dominated by big landlords and the sharecroppers, mezzadri in Italian, Montalcino's tradition goes back to small independent farmers that have never been working as mezzadri for the landlords, but they owned their little plot of land for generations. They owned their oxen, their carts, and the means of work themselves. That did not mean that they were rich or any richer or well-being than their counterparts in Chianti Classico, who were sharecroppers or other appellations of Tuscany. They were just as poor. But what distinguished them in the way that they were working was their pride. They were pride to own their own land, even within the poverty that they were acting in. And so This is the lead theme to understand why Brunello is so 100% Sangiovese driven. These families, these original Montalcino farming families, would never give up pride and connection identity of Sangiovese. So when we had in the 70s and 80s, 90s, international varieties arrive in Tuscany and then also in Montalcino. We have an appellation for that, Sant'Antimo. The original farming families in Montalcino would not even consider planting this just because it was all of a sudden allowed. They instead insisted more and more on evolving around the theme of Sangiovese and making their Sangiovese more recognizable and pinpointing them more precisely to the location where they are located. And that is the story of Montangoli family as well. I already worked for the second generation. I've worked for the father, Vasco. Now I work for Marco Montangoli. He very ably handles the development of his farm. The location we are in is the eastern side of Montalcino, Torrenieri side. So we have very well-known neighbors. There's a sunken, beautiful location above the World UNESCO World Heritage Site called Val d'Orcia. Incredible views. We are on one side protected from the south from the Montamiata, from the harsher climates that may come in from the inland. We still receive a lot of maritime climate influence, and we have these beautiful updrifting winds all summer long from the Val d'Orcia, that although we are known for Sangiovese Grosso and Montalcino, make sure that our berries do not blow up too much and reach sizes that are too big. We have always a wonderful ripeness and concentration guaranteed on the location we are in. This is also why the Montangoli family never ventured out purchasing or seeking to purchase vineyard property away or on a second site. We have all our vineyards located on all four sides of the winery building, a total of 14 hectares of vineyard land. So for a soil situation, very similar, not big distinguishing between the various plots in terms of soil, but in terms of age. When Marco took over the property, he replanted a lot of the vineyards that he had inherited. We left one older vineyard, which today is the 42-year-old vineyard denominated Il di Vasco, which we use in best vintages for our reserva wines. But all the other vineyards have been replanted in the last 20 years to a denser and concept. We have about 5,500 plants per hectare on average, and we are in organic certified agriculture. We can also state so on our labels since the vintage 2017. So the two Brunellos that you have are just the vintage.
I'm showing the label, yes, to our professional. You have it too, just because someone
here with me as well. So we've got
this is the label.
La Rasina label. 2016 vintage, therefore, is the last of the 3 years of conversion organic farming practices. But it goes without saying that the mentality of the traditional farming family of Montalcino, they've always operated in a very natural sense. So Marco, the current owner, had the chance, and his father fought for this, made lots of sacrifices to send his son to school, was the first of the 4 generations to actually go to enology school, earn himself a degree as an enologist, so came back to the farm equipped with all the scientific knowledge in order to operate well. But he still met on the property and still active today at 88 years old, his father, Vasco, who handed him all the things that you don't learn at school. So all the stuff that you need to know intuitively about, how the weather may develop in your particular area, what work steps need to be done when and how to work with the moon. So there's already a very strong basis that Marco at a very young age was able to consult him with from his grandfather and his father, who helped him understand his location. And I think that's today the strength also of La Rasina, that we are not working to make just a great, wonderful Brunello, but we are trying to year in, year out produce a style of Sangiovese that is recognizable for that very particular location. So we are not in the south or the west or the northern part of Montalcino, which have their own very specific characteristics. There will be others from our appellation speaking after me for those locations. We are on the eastern side, so we call it the morning side. We have for a very interesting ripening situation for this for the Sangiovese grape variety. It's a late ripening variety. It's very fairly thin-skinned, and with the moisture coming in the fall, you may have difficulties in ripening or keeping all the odd stuff out of your vineyard. With the updrifting winds from the Val d'Orcia and with the early morning sun rising right in front of our vineyards, we have a uniquely dry situation in the fall that allows us to be aromatically on Sangiovese maybe more precise than any other region in Montalcino. And so this is the very particular character that we're trying to bring out in the wines that we're making.
Jens, I have a question for you. What did change between 10 years ago and today, talking about, you know, the harvesting period?
Yeah, we see the harvesting sometimes that we're forced to do it a little earlier because, you know, 17, this year was very hot too. We have had a series of very hot vintages that require a lot of experience in the vintner's decision making, you know. It is definitely a more challenging time, not only because of the temperatures, but also because of the extreme weather condition, in the sense that we have, for example, also a lot of hail and adverse weather conditions with cold temperatures that before we didn't have. So we are suffering on both sides in viticulture, and we have to be very careful in how we approach it.
What are you looking in the wines that La Rasina produce? So what are the difference between the La Rasina Brunello di Montalcino 16 and the Persante 16?
So both wines are harvested and sourced on the same vineyards. We're about between 25 to 18 to 22 years of age on those vineyard sites. The first harvest is all for the main production, the Brunello di Montalcino. We do about 32,000 bottles of that. And then we do another 4,000 or 5,000, depending on the vintage, of a 3-day later harvested grape selection that is vinified separately in upright wooden fermenters. So it is 2 different fermenting styles in order to achieve 2 different evolving styles of wine. The upright wooden fermented style called Persante is obviously a much more slowed down version of a Brunello. We currently are releasing it still at the same time than the Brunello, but the plans for the future, if we can enlarge a little bit also our cellar size, will allow us to hold this bottle back a little longer. So we will keep the Persante a little longer, and we want to keep overall the wines in the cellar a little longer, because we feel that particular Brunello from the big vintages like the 16 is a big shouldered vintage, benefit a lot from cellar aging in the glass.
This is the label of Persante, so like you can see is actually the same, plus there is the addition of the word Persante, which means, Jens, Persante?
Well, I've spoke about the 4 generations, and this is a dedication to the grandfather Sante, and reflects a little bit his also his character of the personality that Marco wanted to capture. He was a very rigid person with few words, but the words that he meant and said were maintained and very precise. So that is the character that he wanted to maintain for this wine as well. And it is also a simple saying thanks to his ancestors that they enabled him to to work at this level at the farm today, which otherwise would not be possible.
I don't know, Jens, if you saw it. There was in chat a comment from Martin talking about, of course, the purity of Sangiovese now in 2020, 2021 vintages. For sure, there was a past where, you know, it's easier for me. I was not there tasting wines,
Yes.
but in 2000, maybe in the years of 2000 or in the late 90s too, there was maybe some addition and the wines needed more power, more color. For sure, now the situation is completely changed.
Yeah.
We are able to communicate this and to say to the people how beauty are the wines made with the purity of the fruit. I don't know if you want to spend 2 words and what was the philosophy of La Rasina from the beginning.
Yeah, so sure. There were years where vintners were lured into satisfying not only the press, but, you know, the American market. That was kind of like the golden egg to be laid. And so everything was possible. Everything was necessary in order to convince the one god of journalism out there, maybe 2 or 3 others as well. And on the proceeds of that, being able to buy more vineyards, bigger tractors, and evolve faster than the competition. But that was also the time where Montalcino lost a little bit on the European customer base. And I'm very happy that a curve on that wrong direction was able to be turned. And I think particularly in the style that we almost call more a bit of a Burgundian style with the Rasina wines, that we have again caught the attention of our European customers. And we particularly from our winery want to stay away from getting that reputation of making wine for the US market.
Yes, thank you very much. We are perfect in time. If there is some question from our professional, we will be happy to answer always also in chat. Stay with us. We are going to taste 4 more producers from Montalcino. Before, I would like to make a question to one of our professionals. I had the pleasure to meet him during the last summer in Tuscany. Andrea, if you are still connected with us, I would like to ask you what's happened in the last 2 years with this unlucky COVID situation, and what do you think about the future? This is more important for us.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andrea, and talking from Ticino, but actually work for the company Global Wine in Zurich. And I gonna answer you directly about your question. I think anyway in Switzerland, the thing that I can always say, we coming really quite well away from this situation of COVID, and which made anyway close the restaurant in year 19 and 2020 and 2021 at the beginning. But I have really to say that the government helped really a lot. Not just the people that they were shut. So, but even other people that they didn't even have the possibility to work. So anyway, there was a system that anyway with that guarantee anyway to the people to have their own wages, to receive their own wages. And that's anyway has got anyway a great effect when then the market open up again, because anyway everybody has got the wants anyway to go out, wants anyway to go in different places around Switzerland. I'm talking, and anyway you got still the money to do that. And I think I maybe we are like in a soap bowl here in Switzerland, I like to say, But for us, the situation was quite good. So we were able to improve anyway our sales in the 2020, to improve that result in 2021 already. So we passed already our expectation, and yeah, so it's the future is pink, as they say. I don't know if I can say general. Of course, we missed as a tourist the American tourist and the Russian tourist, but the local, so the Swiss people stayed here directly in Switzerland, and then the German is for us imported as well, and came here in Switzerland. So I'm quite happy.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It was important for us, to have good words on the situation that is changing. We can see it, we can touch it actually. And I hope it's the same in the different countries. I can see here the people are finally less scared. And so the idea now is to enjoy again the life and to wait for the, how do you say, the elastic effect of the curve after this pandemic situation. Thank you very much, Andrea. There was a question again, maybe you can answer. It's more or less the same for you or for our producers of Brunello. How important is the Swiss market, especially for Brunello producers?
Well, Swiss market,
from your point of view.
Well, Brunello is anyway. I always say it's really important, and I always say in every wine list there is always Brunello. So it's just a question that is it failed, as Jan said before. I got the feeling as well that in the last couple of years, maybe 3 as well, it's not so in trend, the Brunello. And so maybe as talking about Brunello, so it's always a little bit difficult to, it's stuck a little bit. Let's say it's stuck a little bit on the wine list. It's there, it's present, but it's not moving. And I think that comes because anyway, the biggest lion in all Tuscany makes anyway Bulgari, and when Bulgari has sales, and then as regarding sales, and then in the Brunello is a little bit difficult, yes, but I got a feeling that for the next 6 months, and anyway the future, it will come up, and it's really something that I feel it already. Maybe starting from the appellation from Rosso di Montalcino, but the trend is coming up again for Brunello di Montalcino. This
Andrea,
is
this is your point of view, absolutely. Another question, thinking about what is your perception on what the people drink the wines in Switzerland? So I mean, do you like to listen to the recommendation? They want to wait 5-8 years before to open a good bottle of wine. They would like to enjoy from the beginning the wines after they read a review. I don't know, what is your feeling? So there is still a lot to teach people, to make I don't know, an open mind vision of the terroir of the vintage, or the people like also to enjoy from the beginning the different wines? Because we are showing today like the 2016 and 2015 vintage of many Brunello di Montalcino producers. As you can imagine, the wines are completely different. Also, a Riserva 15 maybe can be better to taste in the next 5-10 years instead of 16. It is still so compressed. It's a wine we need to wait.
of course. Well, I think the Swiss market, first of all, the Swiss people are really curious. That I have always to say that it's all the points or points or what anyway the critical sides is anyway always well known. But I think that the Swiss people they travel a lot. They traveled a lot as well in Tuscany. So they like even they are curious to try always something different and even different houses. And of course, as regarding the approachable of drinking, of course, it's like everybody of us when you're sitting in the table and you open I mean, everybody of us general, but when you open a bottle on the table, then you expect that the bottle spread it out all already the perfume and the brightness of the product. And of course, there are like 2015, it will be much more approachable to drink as a 16. But I see in every situation that at the end the bottle that you open up and you can enjoy directly. It's always the one that wins in a big, let's say, in a big screen.
Good. Thank you very much.
I hope I understood and answered your question.
You answered everything, you know, like a punching time. I had the chance to make you different question. It was important for us, actually. And thank you very much. I think there is still a lot to do in the communication. This will be part of my job too, to try to say, you know, there are so many good wines. The technology are helping a lot the producers, but also the knowledge is completely changed among the producers. So there are expression and vintage you can enjoy from the beginning, and there are some you need to wait. And this is also a good part and a beautiful part to say, I have a small cellar, I'm renting a space because I want to have my, let's say, son and daughter in my cellar and wait for them when is the good moment. And after, why not organize like a moment or a dinner to open that bottle? I mean, the cuisine is really, really important for sure, the different kind of food, but also the pairing maybe can start from at reverse. So why not? We should try to think about the idea to open a bottle and then to make all the menu around them. Because, you know, I'm looking for the point of view of a winemaker and a wine critic. So for me, the wine is really, really important. I know it's not so easy to communicate this to the wine lover and to explain them how much there are and there is behind the project. Yes, was good also, like, you know, Michael was writing on chat, Jens and La Rasina, so the family of the Mantengoli family is working in this direction. They wait 1 year more, for example, for their Riserva before to release on the market. So while I'm tasting a lot of Riserva 16 Brunello, they are going to release the Riserva 15 in January 2022. So yes, okay. Thank you very much again, Andrea. Stay with us. We are going to taste the next producers. Unlucky, the next producers was not able to participate in person. We had the pleasure to see Daniele from Fuligni Winery on Monday, but today is not able to join us. So I will spend 2 words on the winery for sure. It is one of the most important winery, I think, in Montalcino. Just because it's one of the most ancient and is one of that winery that you can find the classicism of a beauty Sangiovese in all their wines. It's important when you go back and you taste the old vintages for them. We are talking of Fuligni. Fuligni is not far away from actually La Rasina that we just tasted. We are located in the northeast part of Montalcino town. Everything started with Giovanni Maria Fuligni when he moved into Montalcino in the beginning of the 20th century. They own today around 100 hectares of land. And when Giovanni Maria Fuligni passed away, the winery were led by Maria Flora Fuligni. They used to work from the beginning of the late 70s and 80s on their wines with a big cask. So is one of the traditional producers in Montalcino. Today you are tasting two vintages side by side. They are showing the Brunello di Montalcino 16, and like we said previously, also the Riserva 15 together. They are both two of the most incredible vintages we had in Italy, in particular way in Tuscany and in Montalcino. But they are also really different between them. The 16, as you can see, it's really deep, it's dark, has a little bit more fresher characteristic on the palate, while the Riserva is already approachable, is so gentle, but also so complex in the quantity of floral notes and fruit notes. There is Paolo connected with us, is a part of our team that got it also the samples. Paolo, do you want to spend 2 words on the 2 wines and what is your feeling on the 2 wines and the glass?
Yeah, sure. In this case, I'm so lucky because it's not the first time, thanks to you and thanks to Fuligni, that I taste Fuligni Brunello di Montalcino 2016. In my opinion, what I can say about the Brunello di Montalcino is always, and I can say always, a great drink wine. Like you can feel it already on the glass when you have on the nose how much is the powerful of this wine, how much is incredible the perfume of the floral, of the red fruit, cherries or strawberries already on the nose. And when you taste already on the wine, is an incredible gentle palate that you have. I mean, you can feel it that maybe needs a little bit more time, but it's already drinkable already right now, even if it's 2016. As everybody knows, there are some wines that they need time, but in this case, for my opinion, I can drink even 2 glasses right now. Like, I mean, is a really incredible wine. And every time I taste it, I never said, oh, I don't like anymore. Sometimes it's happening, you know, and maybe you taste a wine in a couple of years, you taste again and you say, maybe I taste better. But in this case, I believe it's still incredible, in my opinion, of course. What about Riserva? Riserva is, as Raffaele says before, is an incredible wine as well, but it's more gentle and is incredible powerful as well. So in this case, we have 2015, and already the color is already more like more tired, like more dark, yeah. So when you feel it on the palate, your mouth still clean, so is not aggressive, but still there, like, and he has a really long persistent on your mouth, so still kindly, and the tannin you can feel it, not a lot, it's not aggressive, what I can say, but it's still really good. And this is something that I really like it, because you can enjoy, you can relax with a glass of wine, and you can stay there like a little bit of time. Instead, some wines maybe you just drink, but this you need a little bit spend more time for this glass, what I can say.
Paolo, thank you very much for your intervent and for the passion of the wines you just described. Stay with us. We are going to taste now another producers, and there is Sabina connected with us. Sabina is the owner together with Lorenzo of Livio Sassetti Winery. We are located in the north side of Montalcino town, in what I think the most beautiful road that you need to drive to arrive there. Sabina, it will be my pleasure to give you the possibility to talk about Livio Sassetti Winery, the history in some minutes, and for sure the 2 beautiful vintages you selected for today.
Ciao Raffaele, grazie, and hello to everybody. I'm very, very glad to be here. And as Raffaele said, we are in a very beautiful area. I mean, Montalcino is rich and Tuscany are which they're both rich and beautiful places, but we are nestled on the northern part of the village in a hillside area that is called Montosoli. And well, this is a very famous grove for Montalcino, and our estate was actually founded by my husband Lorenzo's great-grandfather, but over 100 years ago, but who's actually started making Brunello seriously was his dad, Livio, back in the 60s. Our very first bottle of Brunello dates back to 1964. And Livio was one of the very first winemakers actually making wine there. When he started producing wine, there were only 8 winemakers at the time. So now it's almost 300, so, you know, it was long ago. And being a very, let's say, old estate, we are also a very traditional estate. We're a medium-sized winery. We own 12 hectares of Sangiovese Grosso Brunello all over the farmhouse. The farmhouse is named Pertimali, and a lot of people really relate to our estate as Livio Sassetti Pertimali or just Pertimali. And you know, as I told you before, being an old producer, we're also a very traditional one. So we try to really bottle a very classical Brunello that is using the traditional aging style of the 36 months of wood aging in Slavonian oak barrels. One of the, most important features of our wine are related to the area in where we are. That is, most of the wines produced in Montosoli are usually refined, with very smooth tannins, very elegant, probably not that powerful. We are not really on the superstructured Brunello, but usually we are much more on the, you know, the very long-lasting and refined one. And one of the characteristics that's really very distinguishing for our wines is the way my husband Lorenzo works in the field. He tried to be faithful with his father's idea of very traditional wine, but he also liked the ideas to make wines that are fresh, fruity, and approachable. And what we always try to make every year with every vintage is to work very carefully with, growing grapes. So bring in the cellar healthy but ripe grape. And also to work carefully with the fermentation. Always try not to extract too much, because the idea is to offer a Brunello that's gonna last forever, but basically that you can open and enjoy since the very beginning. And what I chose to actually let you taste today are not the current releases, but are 2 wines that we have at the stage. The first one is our Riserva 2012. 2012 was a rather dry season, but Montalcino is a small place, but with very, very different characteristics depending on the area. At least for us that are in Montosoli, where that is a cooler area with usually wet and moist soil, we usually never experience problem of really thirsty vineyards. So usually, even when it's very dry, we succeed in just bringing the cellar healthy grape. They usually never suffer that much. So we usually, succeed in working, in a good way, even if we have a very hot season, which is the contrary when we really have a very cold season, that's a problem, for us. Like, for example, 2017, we had a very bad frost in April, and especially the vineyards on the lower part, we really lost all the crop because it was very cold and all the gems died. But in seasons that are a little actually drier or hotter, we usually have no problem. And 12 is a very rich wine because, you know, the grapes were very ripe when we brought them to the cellar. And we work with a shorter fermentation, let's say shorter than usual, because we really didn't want it to extract too much. And we have a wine that is very complex, very perfumed, but still very fresh. Very pale in color, as you can see in the glass.
Absolutely agree with you, Sabina. It's so gentle and subtle. It shows the classicism, no, of the purity of the fruit, like we say. And it's also important to have the opportunity, a great honor to taste this old vintage from you, in comparison of what we are tasting, the recently vintages that are going on the market. Because like we said, you know, maybe this is gonna be one of the best moments to taste wines after 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and even more. Tasting also your 2007, we are going to taste a wine that now is going to make a 15 years old birthday.
Oh yeah, you know, our 07, that is a special selection that is called, I don't know if you can really set on the label, we got a 10 on the front label, because our idea was we had 2 vintages, 06 and 07, that were fabulous vintages, right one after the other. Both 5-star vintages, but with really very different characteristics. 06 was great acidity, super powerful, you know, a super structured wine, and destined to last for a super long time. While 07 was, let's say, much more softer, gentle, you know, a very elegant nose. So we had this idea to keep a small selection of both vintages, let the wine age for an extra year. So not the usual 36 months of good aging, but 48 months of good aging. And then we offer the wine to the market in a moment that we thought could be a good moment to enjoy. So for the 06, we will make a 20 that we will release in 2026. And for the 07, we decided to make a 10 in Italian, that we reoffered to the market in 2017. But as you can actually smell from the wine, you know, it's 15 years old, but still very fresh. So it means that this one can, you know, can really last for another longer time. But it's very interesting, you know, and the wine rested in the best possible condition, that is at our cellar. So we really had the idea to keep the wine for us, at the place, and then reoffer to the market when it's really, you know, that's the right time to enjoy, and you can be really sure 100% that the wine was perfectly actually kept.
How do you like to explain when you talk about Livio Sassetti, Sabina? Is more a winery producers that you can taste from the beginning, or you suggest a lot also from collectors and people who wants to you know, in like a private space, or the possibility to enjoy this wine in a great restaurant, a Michelin star restaurant?
I mean, you got both possibilities. That is, let's say that, when you work carefully, you have a very well-balanced wine. Usually the wine can really last for long. And our idea is that our wine has to be very well balanced and destined to really last for long, and they're going to give their best maybe after 20 years. But yeah, my husband idea is that he likes our wines to be approachable. That is, for example, like the latest release, like 16, 15 super powerful vintages, destined to last for long, already in 15 years. But I don't know if you remember the idea, you open and then you say, oh, you know, that's very young, but still, you know, smooth, round tannins. And this is basically, you know, let's say the best of the best would be to try to achieve both objectives. That is, having a wine able to last for super long. I don't know if you recently had any older bottles of Sassetti, but, you know, sometimes we open maybe something from the 80s, something from the 90s, and usually they're all still very good. Most of them still super fresh. So it means that we are really in a place where you can make wines that can really last for such a long time, especially due to the climate and soil combination. And then we hope we are doing a good job in the cellar, and so, you know, stabilize and enable our wines to really resist for long. But then if people are like me, that I always buy a lot of wine and then I always say I'm gonna save and taste in 5 years, and then for some reason there's always a good reason to open straight away. And so that's what and of course also the fact that what Lorenzo likes in general, it just like he likes approachable wines. It's our own idea, it's personal taste, and you always tend to go towards what he likes. And I think that's pretty logical for, I mean, most of the winemakers. It's basically like our own idea. I like this so much. That's what I'm looking for. And this is what I really want to offer to, I mean, to those that are buying our wines.
Sassetti is always a guarantee, to be honest. So in my cellar, it's there many times that I would like to open. I always say to myself, yes, but maybe you can wait a little bit more. But this doesn't mean, you know, that wine are not approachable from the beginning. Absolutely. Sabine, another question. What is the perception and the approach, maybe better, of Lorenzo on the harvest? So when he likes to pick up the grapes, and in vinification, what he does mainly?
Usually, is always one of the last producer to harvest in Monaco-Zurigo all the time, because he really, really believes that the very first thing is just work carefully in the vineyard and have healthy grape, but then bring the grape in the cellar when it's ripe. Because, you know, because if it's not super ripe, you know, the seeds or the skin itself, they will release a lot of bitter flavor in the wine. Then doing the fermentation is not really going to be easy. He always says that it's going to be easy only if the grape is ripe. You know, then you can really adjust that. It's not our idea. Our idea is to, you know, we work organically in the field. So our idea is to work, I mean, with grapes that are in the best possible condition. And you know, in the past, Livio used to harvest in November because grape was actually ready and ripe in November. And now usually we harvest around October because it's always like we have during the summer. It's usually always quite hot in August. Then in September we always get some rain. So the rain can rehydrate actually the grape. Then the grape needs some times, you know, to after the rain to rest and ripen best. And so he says that apart some exceptional actually vintages, like for example, 2012, we harvested the last week of September because it was a very hot season and grape was actually right before. But this year we started probably the 7th of October, when probably most of the other producers had already harvested, but just because he said, okay, we're not ready yet. And we did harvest when he said the grape is ripe, we can make a very good wine. So it's very bad. It's just like you analyze and taste the wine, and actually when it's sweet, it's the proper time. Because you know, if it's ripe enough, you don't really extract any, you know, bitter actually taste. And we don't really want to have sharp or aggressive tannins because we really want to obtain the contrary. So that's basically when he harvests. And then it's as no protocol for vinification. That is, he ferment the wine with indigenous yeast, and then he tastes the wine 3, 4, 5 times a day while fermenting. And then he decides how many times he wants the skins and the juice to be in contact together, pumping, over in the tank. It can be a couple of times a day, 3 times a day, only 1 time a day. And there's not really a fixed standard for fermentation time. It's not really 15 days. It's just like 10 days, 11, 12 days. It was 10 days for Reserva 2012 because it was very warm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's not really a rule. The rule is I'm working with what I have to get the best that I can and to achieve a certain idea, a certain result.
There is not a recipe, and I think you are one of the best one to make it, because you know, when you gave the possibility to the consultant to help you, for sure he needs a little bit to work on that side. but when you own your vineyards and you can really work on them and to understand the differences in all the vintages, as you said, there are sometimes vintages I prefer to stay 10 days on with the maceration. And this is actually, important to say that the wine is always an interpretation. I think also the producer can make the difference more good when they are able to understand and to let the wind, bring him in the right place, because it's impossible just to avoid all the different consequences of a vintage. You need just to understand how to manage it.
Right, you're super right.
Sabina, ti ringrazio. Thank you very much for being with us. If there are questions for Sabina, we will be really happy to answer more. She is going to stay with us for a little bit more. And it's a good opportunity, because there is a producers here with us with the 2 amazing vintages. Sabina, see you soon.
Okay, see you soon. Thank you very much. Ciao a tutti.
Ciao, grazie Sabina. Next producers in line is Banfi. We had the pleasure also to present them in the beginning of the week. Should be Igor connected with us.
Ciao Raffaele, here I am.
Ciao Igor, benvenuto. Welcome.
Grazie.
Yes.
Very happy to be with you again. So today we are going to present 2 wonderful vintages from Banfi, the Poggio al Mura 16 and Poggio al Loro 15. So they are representing the 2, let's say, higher level of quality of Banfi wines. Together with Vigna Marruchetto, that was the last launch that we presented just a couple of days ago, and which is also the finalization of our zonation project and many years of experimenting. So as you well know, just to introduce briefly the company, Banfi was founded in 1978. It's still a family business run by the Mariani family. We are basing everything on study and research, especially on the clones of Sangiovese, on the trellising system, on the study of the soils. And we base everything on a deep knowledge of our territory and all of the little corners of the Banfi property. So we are huge, we are big, it's about 2,830 hectares in a single plot, so as the largest contiguous wine estate in Europe. But we are, let's say, a constellation of single vineyard, treating every site of the company like a single vineyard. And indeed, we identified 29 kind of different soils in our property, and potentially we can produce, thanks to this zonation concept, more than 20 different Brunellos every year. So but I would like just to focus a little bit more on the wines today, because it's nice to go deeper in the tasting profiles and the differences between 15, 16 vintages, but as well on the 2 different sites, which the 2 wines we are going to taste now represent. So Poggio al Mura is the place surrounding our castle, the one you can see in my background. So it's...
I show the label, Igor, in meantime.
That's it, indeed. So Poggio al Mura is the name of the castle, and indeed all around the castle there's a huge vineyard, which is to us the first, let's say, to concretize, to make it real, all of the projects of Banfi about zonation and about the clonal selection project. So we studied all of the clones of Sangiovese in our property that we individuate by ourselves, just to see that how many differences there were in single by every single Sangiovese clones, and we micro vinified all of them for more than 10 years in a row. So we reduced these clones to 80, and then finally to 3 only, which are the clones that we are using in Poggio al Mura. And for the first time ever, Poggio al Mura is a Brunello di Montalcino made with only 3 of those clones of Sangiovese. Why those 3? Because they were fitting our expectations of quality, and let's say they also were definitely tailor-made for our territory. So they were definitely the final result of a long study and research about the Sangiovese grape. So, but why in Poggio al Mura? Because it's the southwest facing vineyard, very beautiful, very draining, so no mold, no wet, no humidity. So always resulting very good and healthy grapes, always giving super freshness and acidity, thanks to this kind of 4 and 5 different soil combination with the clay and chalk and very steep as well. And so finally, Poggio Lemura has this kind of a very, let's say, concentrated texture, especially also in the color, which is a little bit deeper than the next Poggio Loro that we are tasting afterwards. But this is just due to the phenolic maturation. There's nothing else. I mean, we are definitely picking the grapes when accordingly with phenolic and sugar ripening. So every time in Poggio Lemura, the perfect ripening is usually leading to a perfect phenolic maturation. And tannins, acidity, as well as alcohol and color are the four main characteristics to keep Brunello in life for many, many years. So all of these combinations make Poggio Lemura absolutely outstanding. So it's a wine smelling definitely a little bit more spicy, thanks to, of course, this kind of natural spiciness, but also with a fruit-driven Sangiovese, so cherry, plums, jams, which is also reminded to some plum skins, a little bit of spiciness due to the oak aging. But the oak aging is finally something very important in Banfi, because we are using barrels that produced by ourselves and aged in our winery for sometimes 3 or 4 years. And this is to reduce the CO2 in the shipment. Indeed, we are sustainable, but also to give a very precise signature of Banfi wines thanks to the wood. So as you well know, to produce a Brunello Montalcino, a regular one like Poggio Lemura, it takes 5 years of aging in total. And in those 5 years, 2 mandatory must be barrel aging. So barrels and wood as well are definitely key to understand and to produce Brunello Montalcino. So we buy staves in France, we select them, and then we age open space in Banfi. And then there's a partner of Banfi called Gamba in Piedmont, which is doing the barrels for us. They are medium toasted, they're very gentle. The smallest is 350 liters, so we don't have any 225 liter barrique, but we have big casks, 60 and 90 hectoliters. And Poggio Lemura is aging both in 350 liters, let's say tonneau, and 60 hectoliters and 90 hectoliters casks. So finally, the final result is a nice combination of a little spiciness with a very refined smells and perfume. Tends to be a little spicy as well, but with a very fresh and concentrated texture in the mouth. So the tannins, after 2 and more years of barrel aging, results a lot in terms of volumes, as a Brunello should be, but very soft and refined and velvety in terms of texture. So in the end, it's definitely high acidity wines, very high alcohol wine, but as well with a firm texture signature, which means that the wine is definitely a very nice, harsh and dry after tasting, resulting as a Brunello should be. So very, say, tannic in terms of structure. And this is excellent for food matching, great with any kind of, typical Tuscan food, but as well with everything that can be definitely very well matched by tannins and clean up by the tannins as well in your mouth. So this is more or less what Poggio Lemura is resulting. And as I already said by my previous colleague in talking about Montalcino, the 15 was very different than 16. And this is good also to explain the differences between Poggio Lemura 16 and Poggio Loro 15. So they both have been rated 5-star vintages in Montalcino area. So it's nice to get 2 5 stars in a row, but very different one from each other. So 15 has been for us, we are in the south of the appellation, very rainy in the winter and springtime, but with a nice, let's say, alternative days of rain and sun and breezes. So we didn't face any big humidity and not problems with mold, nothing. So, but this kind of high rain coming in the cold season was allowing us to keep water. And Banfi is collecting the rain to use the water in the cleaning of the winery, but also in the dripping irrigation in our vineyards. So the water balance in all of the estate were absolutely great, much different than, for instance, 17 that was the opposite, so completely dry and very, very, very dry. So 15 was, from the water point of view, absolutely excellent. And then the summer was incredibly hot very hot temperatures, allowing the perfect ripening of the grapes, both for the sugars and the phenolic area. And finally, the last twist, let's say, lucky twist for the harvest was September. Very mild temperature, no rain, so perfectly healthy grapes. And in the end, with a very good differences day and night temperature, fixing the acidity and fixing the aromas as well. So the grapes of 15 were absolutely stunning from that point of view. And I guess that's the reason why the vintage has been rated 5 stars. So if we move to Poggio now, which is a 15, so the vintage I already said, we can see that the differences with the 16 Poggio Lemura is that 16 was definitely more homogeneous, very mild, very easygoing from picking to picking. So absolutely a wide, next outstanding vintage. So we say that the winemaker in the cellar was walking with a smile in the face during vintages like that, because everything was led by an incredible healthy grapes, and everything was made in the vineyards as usual. So the 15 Poggio Loro is resulting from these, let's say, a mild and cold spring and winter and hot summer. As a wine which is traditional Brunello, is much more developed and refined and paler color than Poggio Lemura, which more this kind of multi-dimensional style. You can smell fruit, is fruit in jam, it can be a plum skin, it tends a little bit to tomato skin, sometimes to orange leaf. So it's a very complex nose. Definitely every time you smell, you get something new, also reminding a little bit to leather, tobacco, licorice, a little bit of mocha with some definitely earthy sensations coming from the soil. But Poggio Lemura, compared with Poggio Loro, is a big vineyard in a beautiful place around the castle. Poggio Loro has been the first ever cru we identified in Banfi in '85. So this 2015 is the 30th anniversary, let's say, of Loro, but it's only the 15th release of the wine. So we don't produce Poggio Loro every year, but only when the vintage is exceptional. Exceptional means that even if it's a 5-star rating vintage from the consortium, if we think it's not as good enough to be Poggio Loro, we don't produce. So 2001, for instance, we didn't, but 2013 we did. So everything is just related to the pedoclimatic and microclimate related to Poggio Loro if we produce. So,
Igor, sorry to interrupt you. Can I
please.
just a second? What is the big difference between the two vineyards? What they face to, and if there are a difference between also the soil. So if the composition, if there is sand and clay.
Yeah, in Poggio Loro we got some like 4 kind of different soils, but the most, let's say, the common characteristics of these 4 soils is to be very rich in soils and rocks and pebbles, and usually they are coming from kind of a chalky and brownish color soil. That means that the tannic and the phenolic part of the maturation is always huge and complex, incredibly complex. But as well, at the same time, acidity is fixed in this kind of territory, so in the composition of 4 soils. And most of all, by being so rich in stones and rocks, it's very draining, so you will never get any humidity there. So it's a very dry microclimate in the northwest part of the Banfi estate. While Poggio Lemura, is a little bit steeper and in a warmer situation, just facing the south every year. So I would say that there are no bad vintages in Poggio Lemura, and the soil composition is much different also in the steepness. So in the higher part of the soil, we got some very rocky and clay and white soil, while in the bottom downstairs we got some sand, a little bit more silky soil. And indeed, this is a final result of a long era of being under the sea, because as you well know, Montalcino was under the sea, that part of Montalcino talking about million years ago. And indeed, as you always, you know, because you know Montalcino better than me, but we found the waves, the bones of a whale, not far away from Montalcino. So that means that million years ago, that place was ocean, actually. So we still today in Poggio alle Mura, we can find some fossils of, mussels and some sea sediments, which is making the composition of the soil a little bit more rich and more mineral as well. So there's a big difference between the two soils. But then the age of the plants in Poggio all'Oro is a little bit older than Poggio alle Mura. We started to produce wine there in 85, while Poggio alle Mura, the first Brunello, is 97. So this combination also is giving a big difference between the two wines. So I would say that Poggio alle Mura tends to be more concentrated, and Poggio all'Oro is definitely more traditional style of Brunello di Montalcino. And that's why for us is only in special vintages and only Riserva. And indeed, Poggio all'Oro is only a Riserva. That's why it is 15, because 15 can be sold from 2021 this year. But as I used to say, we are aging Riserva a bit longer than a normal Riserva. So we have just launched Poggio all'Oro 15 a month ago. So it's brand new. So it's almost 7 years, 6.5 of aging instead of the regular 6 needed to become a Riserva. So finally, Poggio all'Oro is definitely our iconic wines, the most, representative of Banfi, and the one which is making Banfi very, very famous as well. So this kind of a tannic and savory texture with fresh and dry appeal mouthfeel is making the wine very long aging potential. So I'd like to say that I heard some opinion about how much a wine should be kept in the cellar before drinking. So we think that you cannot ask a consumer today to wait for 10 years to drink a bottle of wine if you buy it now. So I mean, it's easier maybe to explain what a Brunello should be. So Brunello is a balance between alcohol, acidity, and tannins. So no tannins, no Brunello. If you have tannins, that's a signature of Brunello di Montalcino. It is better to understand what the tannins are and how they react in your mouth than waiting for 10 years to drink a Brunello. So I'm sure that if you drink a Poggio all'Oro now, which is a month old, not 7 years, it's not young. I mean, it's how a Brunello should be. Of course, if you wait for 10 years, I'm sure this wine will surprise you and will get even better and better by the time passing. But this is just a sign of how good and well that wine has been made, and how Brunello, every Brunello potentially could last in the cellar for a long time. So in the end, it's better to understand these kind of very strong tannins accent instead of waiting for too long to consume a Brunello di Montalcino. So that's my personal idea.
Igor, thank you very much for your exposition and for the 2 great wines we tasted together. The Poggio alle Mura 16, like you showed also on your screen, it's an amazing place, an amazing vineyard, but also Poggio all'Oro, it always gives you an amazing deep character that people love it from the beginning.
Yes.
Stay with us. We have still the next producers, and we are going to finish in 5 minutes more also with the last wines we lost in the beginning. So Planeta is still connected with us to show also the Nello Mascalese that we had the chance to talk it, but it will be better to listen the exposition from the winemaker. Thank you very much, Igor. If there are questions for you, you can read them on our chat. Riccardo should be connected with us to tell us more about Argiano. Argiano is for sure one of the most ancient winery in Montalcino. They used to produce wines since many years ago, but they are always not only a symbol of tradition, but also of a future, I like always to say. Riccardo, are you connected?
Yes, I am. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning to you.
Grazie, Raffaele. And so we are the last winery to taste many other colleagues and friends from Montalcino, from Tuscany, from Sicily, and from Alto Adige. They made their speech. So now what I would like to talk about is about Argiano, of course, a winery that was born almost 500 years ago. We always had the production of wines. Of course, it was not what we produce nowadays, but used to be kind of a fortress farm in the southwest of Montalcino, with the production of many different things, not just wines, but olive oil. We used to have animals, we used to have the cereals. So in the centuries, it's evolved until in the last 100 years, roughly, we started to be one of the first producers in Montalcino. After that, Biondi Santi decided to share the way of producing the Brunello. So Argiano is a beautiful place, like in all the other estates that you have analyzed and you have tasted. We have this beautiful villa from the end of the 16th century, which is the heart of the estate, is where we have the offices, the cellars, is where we are going to have in the next months also a beautiful collection of art from the Renaissance and Toscan artists. So that is not yet completed, but I invite you to come and visit us to also to check something that goes away from the winemaking production. And then we have also recently restored the villa because of course, after many centuries, we had to refresh it, but we wanted to maintain the way it used to look. So it's the one that you see on the Solengo label, one side of the villa, and it's quite big, but also harmonic, comes from the Peruzzi architecture style, with the harmony, with the proportions, with the size also of the villa that has 365 windows. Imagine to have this very modern building in the 16th century that used to be the house of the owner, so the Pecci family, but they had around the villa all the production of the different products, so wines, olive oil, etc. And what we have done in the last years also is a full conversion to the organic farming. And this is just a way to increase the quality of our wines. It's not a way to say, okay, just buy Argiano because it's organic. No, we want to avoid to spoil the vines. They have to explore the soil. They have to send the roots very deep in the soil to get macro and micronutrients. Without using fertilizers, they have to work out a little bit. They have to struggle, and without using pesticides, not even the natural ones, we are able to increase the biodiversity. So to restore the environments and the ecosystem that now is back to what it used to be many, many years ago. But of course, we have a better knowledge, more modern knowledge. We know more and we try to do less. So we want to express the terroir. We believe that our wines are the results of three major factors. The terroir, which is unique for every single winery in the world, is the winemaking style that we have reached with many years of work and experiences. And then it's also the results of the vintage, something that you cannot fight, but you have to do the right interpretation to express the best potential that you have in your lands. So we are next door to Banfi, but there are many differences. And this is the beauty of Montalcino, is that if you go to the north side, you have different soils, different climates. You come to the south and southwest is another different microclimates. And again, the beauty of Montalcino and the beauty of Sangiovese in general is that it's a very versatile grape varietal that can has many different shades based on these characteristics. So in Argiano, that is about 300 meters above the sea level, extremely influenced by the sea breeze and the Mediterranean climates. We have wine that usually ripe up quite fast. That's why we have to preserve the wine and the vines by making a little bit anticipated harvest in order to not have overripe grapes. So we always want to have the freshness, we want to have the elegance, the minerality that comes from the soils, from the climate. And the result is that we try to have balanced wines. In the glass, during the aging, we have to use the woods in the proper way. And in this case, this morning, we are tasting two wines, Rosso di Montalcino 2019 and Solengo 2019. So we have chosen this vintage because it's very promising. We think that also with the Brunello, we are going to have beautiful results with the 2019. That was very balanced, not too hot, not too dry. We had a big differences between the day and night temperatures, and this helped a lot to create aromas, to reach the balance, and being able to make a harvest in an old way. So we have done the harvest quite late, end of September and beginning of October, when usually, especially in the last 20 years, we make the harvest quite early, usually at the beginning of September or middle of September. By doing the harvest later, we have been able to have ripe fruits, very healthy, and with the right maturation. Talking about the wines, the Rosso di Montalcino for us is the expression of a young Sangiovese, a wine that has to be energetic, with a good tension, that needs to have a good freshness, good tannins, but never too much structure. It's a wine that we consider the most gastronomic wine that we produce in Argiano, just because by drinking it by itself, it can be a little bit aggressive, because we know that Sangiovese has quite high acidity and quite high tannins. But trust me, when you match it with foods, you finish the bottle in 10 minutes. And this makes the wine quite dangerous, because you can drink it, you can enjoy it. It's fresh. You have these red cherry notes, mineral notes, floral, without too much structure. So this is something that we try to avoid. We want the elegance also on a wine that is just the introduction to the more famous Brunello. And
Riccardo, what is, sorry to interrupt you, what is the next goal for Rosso di Montalcino? There is a lot of, people working hard on this denomination, because for sure there's a potential, and is not only a small brother of Brunello. It has their own personality. And what do you think? Where do you think it's going to be a good point value wine, but not only, also for the people to understand it is good to approach the denomination. It is good to try to see it later in time.
Well, for Rosso di Montalcino, there are many different visions in the area. We believe that doesn't have to be the little brother of Brunello. The Rosso di Montalcino has its own personality, its own identity. And from our point of view, we think that has to show the energy. I always say that for us, the Rosso di Montalcino is the young boy full of energies that jumps and runs and climbs the trees. So it can be a little bit unfocused, but gives you the energy. So the youth of the vines, of the grapes, and has the expression of not being a wine that requires too much attention when you taste it, when you analyze it. So when you try the Rosso di Montalcino, it has to be a pleasure, has to be quite immediate to understand it. We also have to say that Rosso di Montalcino is produced in a less quantity compared to the Brunello. I'm talking about the whole Montalcino. Probably the proportion is 1 bottle of Rosso produced every 3 bottles of Brunello. So it's kind of strange, because usually for other appellations is the opposite. So you have the top wine, produced in small quantity and the second wine produced in a larger quantity. This is like a reverse pyramid, where the Rosso di Montalcino is getting his position. And we believe that the Rosso is an introduction to the Brunello. It's a wine that literally flows when it goes by the glass in restaurants, in wine bars, is what people buy and drink at home. And it doesn't require too much attention. So I believe that Brunello, it can reach more complexity. Also, it's more suitable for aging, but Rosso di Montalcino can surprise. And I had the chance with friends to taste aged Rosso di Montalcino. And sometimes it's difficult to understand the difference with an old Brunello. It's a surprising wine.
I'm pretty sure.
Do not expect too much structure from a Rosso di Montalcino, but expect the energy, expect the purity of the fruits. Also, we use less oak. This wine is only aged for 6 months in the big oak barrels, in the botti. So the frame of woods around the wine is thinner, and is where we leave more space to the varietal, to the purity of the Sangiovese.
Riccardo, what is the weirdest food pairing did you do with the Rosso di Montalcino?
I remember when we were still traveling, I had it matched in Thailand with a soup. I don't remember the name of the dish, but it was a soup made with a coconut milk, with spices, with chicken, vegetables. So it was kind of a sweet, but extremely tasty. And we tried to match it with Rosso di Montalcino. I think it was working very well. So I love to try with quite weird foods or something not too traditional, because we have the chance to match it with a wild boar every day. But it's fun to try, and sometimes you fail, but sometimes you find the perfect match. So with this Thai soup was working very well. We finished the bottle after 10 minutes, literally.
It is called o tom yum or tom yum, the soup, like our professionals say.
It's cool. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. It's kind of a white color. And thank you for the suggestion. I will try to look it and make it and try it again. And then I'll give you the review of that.
Riccardo, let's taste together Solengo. Solengo 2019, when it was released, if it's already on the market. And in 5 minutes, what can you tell us? Because it's for sure a big story behind the name, or the creator also that understands from the beginning the potential. But it's up to you, to explain it in the better way.
Thank you, Raffaele. Well, Solengo was born with the first vintage of 1995, but we had tests for a few years when the previous owner of Argiano, the Countess Noemi Marone Cinzano, she was a great friend with the Marquise Incisa della Rocchetta from Tenuta San Guido in Bolgheri, from Sassicaia. And he introduced to her his winemaker consultants, Giacomo Takis, father of some of the greatest Italian wines from the north of Italy to the south of Italy, and also going to Sardinia. He arrived to Argiano and they say literally, okay, you're a Brunello producer, one of the most historical wineries, but would you like to make something that is not really done in Montalcino? The Countess said, absolutely, yes. Let's be provocative. Let's make something different. And we started to cultivate the Cabernet Sauvignon, the Merlot, the Petit Verdot, and the first vintage, 1995, was released in 1997 with many surprises, because some of our friends say that we were crazy to make a wine that didn't belong to the traditional production of Montalcino. Montalcino was Sangiovese only. Why cultivate and make wine with Cabernet and Merlot? We continued to produce it until the wine became extremely famous around the world. And, this is what happens with a tradition. The tradition is always an innovation at the beginning. And when you have a success, after many years, it becomes a tradition. So for us, the Solengo is a wine that is a strong heritage for one of the most important winemaker from Italy. We are proud to make it. And this is the other face of Argiano, where we are Brunello producers, but at the same time, we are well known to make this super Tuscan that is quite unique. So Solengo literally means the old lonely wild boar. Is a term used by the hunters here in Montalcino. Is a wine that goes away from the pack of the other traditional wines like the Rosso or the Brunello. And it's also made in a different way. So the 2019 has been released in very few markets now. So this is kind of a preview. It's a wine that was bottled in June. So it needs time to develop. We still miss some tertiary notes. But what we have is a strong wine with a good structure, quite powerful. The tannins are different compared to the Rosso di Montalcino. They are bigger. We also use barriques to make this wine because the big oak barrel just doesn't work for a wine made out of Cabernet, Merlot, and Petit Verdot. The wine has also something more compared to the Brunello that comes literally from the vineyard. What is made with what the nature is giving to us. The Solengo has this extra way of producing by blending the different varietals. So we always sit down with the whole team, trying the different barrels to understand and decide the right blend to use for the Solengo. So the 2019 has a 50% of Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% of Petit Verdot, which is our signature to use a lot of Petit Verdot, simply because it works and it grows very well. It doesn't have too much green and aggressive profile. And then we have 15% of Merlot and just a 5% of Sangiovese. So the Sangiovese is the final touch to make the wine more elegant with the right profile that we want. It's a super Tuscan that has tension, that has a high voltage, because we always want to have a good acidity. We don't want a wine that is already ready to drink when we release it, but we want a wine, a Solengo, that you can literally forget in your cellar. When you drink it young, our suggestion is always to match it with some foods. So it's going to help cleaning up the palate, make the wine a little bit smoother, because Cabernet and Petit Verdot and Merlot can be quite aggressive, especially when they're young. But yes, Solengo is the other side of Argiano. We are proud of this. We have refreshed a little bit also the label. We moved back to the original label that we had until 2007. Sorry, until 2008. Yeah, you are one of the first to try the Solengo 19 because it's very juicy, well structured, but never overripe, never too strong that after one glass you're too tired already.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Riccardo. I was also chatting with some professional. If there are questions for Riccardo, he has a big experience in winery and he used to travel a lot around the world to present the different vintages. Argiano, we are presenting today Rosso di Montalcino and Solengo. I had also a pleasure I had the opportunity to taste a great Brunello that it's going out since 2 years and no more, which is called Vigna del Suolo. It's really a unique wine. Maybe you listened also for the great expression of the terroir. It was also launched like the best red wines from Gambero Rosso recently, and I think they really are making the difference in the last 4 or 5 years when the team is completely changed. They are all young and they are making wines that are respecting in the best way their terroir. Riccardo, thank you very much for your presentation and for the great wines you gave us the opportunity to taste.
Thank you very much, Raffaele. Thank you, everybody. And I wait for you here in Montalcino. We have many colleagues who are waiting for you.
We need to organize, seriously. I hope to be in person next year in this market and to go to have a live tasting all together. See you soon, Riccardo. I will give 2 minutes the words to Patrizia. She waited with us all the tasting long because unlucky, like you see in the beginning, we had a problem with the connection. Let's hope now on the Etna is going to be better. And there was the last wine. Now it's not really easy to taste after Solengo, I know, but let's try to be focused and concentrated also on this kind of red wines that look for elegance and precision of the fruit. Patrizia, are you still with us?
Thank you, Raffaele. Yes, I am. I think I'm more with you than before. We had a huge short and intense storm, so a total blackout, and I have lost this part of speaking about the Eruzione Rosso, and thank you for giving me the chance to be back. We are still up in Sharanova with 80% of this wine, and in the years from 2019, this will be also a single vineyard wine, just as the white, which I already talked through before. The 80% of this wine, Nerello Mascalese, is coming from the upper terraces of this area. We are arriving to 900 meters in this case. As I said, it is the pre-last variety what we are picking, because we are finishing with Caricante. The Nerello Mascalese, in this case, usually we are arriving in around the 15-20 of October, and 18 was a very interesting vintage for us. It was kind of challenging for the nerves because it's been raining every afternoon. But since on the Etna, all the rain is draining down very fastly, it meant that we've been picking then every morning after. And I actually quite did like this this harvest, both for the Caricante, both for the Nerello Mascalese, because in the last part of the maturation, it arrives to a very smooth, very equilibrated, very balanced phenolic maturation. So I was quite happy with that. In case of the Nerello Mascalese, what was our research and way to arrive to where we are today was to try to understand quite, as you said, quite a delicate extraction to find this fine line of the Nerello Mascalese. I think there is still a profile to be understood quite well on the Etna between the different areas, and there has to be done a big work of creating the zones, because we are speaking about Contrade today, which is already quite exciting, but we have to go into smaller units to understand better all the delicate differences between the Nerellos. One thing is sure, that it doesn't like a lot of oxygen. It doesn't like a very aggressive extraction. So what we do usually is right after the alcoholic fermentation, we are topping the tanks with the Piemontese method. So we are just sinking the cap and closing it for about 35, 40, 45 days to have this part of the more delicate extraction. Then basket press and also berry selection were things what we actually introduced here on the Etna, because usually in Sicily you have a more homogeneous maturation on the clusters. Up here on the Etna you can have big differences between the berries also inside one cluster. So these were all techniques which we wanted to dedicate to understand a little bit better than Nerello Mascalese. This is where we are today. It's big cask aging then for 1 year. We are working with 25 and 35 hectoliter casks, and at least 1 year in the bottle then before releasing it to the market. I don't want to torture everybody right before lunch, but this is one of the few cases when I always remember about speaking about the food pairing, because we have the Doc Etna Rosso, which is the lighter version, and that's more, I think, have a good connection with the local antipasti, cold cuts and mushrooms, just very simple mushrooms passed on the grill. This version here, the Eruzione 1614, is obviously way more meat requiring, more a little bit deeper. And one thing on the nose, which I'm always, after more than 10 years working with this grape here, I'm always fancied about, is that I feel kind of like a very compact nose of, you know, the clay, the pure clay when ceramists are working with these blocks of clay. which is just a play in your mind. It's interesting because on the Etna, the only component what we do not have in the soil is the clay. We have a soil which is very loosey, which is very rich, obviously a very interesting spot for the plants, but it does not have any glue, does not have any clay in it. It seems that how this kind of soil is making an effect on the Nerello Mascalese, somehow this composition of the clay, those centuries which are missing from these soils is coming back on the nose of this wine.
Patrizia, thank you very much. And we are glad to listen from you the exposition of Eruzione 1614, your Nerello Mascalese. They are still connected, some professional. We went long. I'm so sorry for these guys. You can understand the passion from people. We were stuck in our country for the last 2 years. It was impossible to talk about our project, our vision, and our wines here produced. So just 2 words from our professional, if I can ask directly. There are still Christian, Andreas connected. There is Corinna. If there is someone of you that can answer me, what did you find in this tasting? It was the first time for you guys tasting these wines in a small bottle. How did you find the wines? Did you enjoy our tasting?
So Raffaele, if I can say something, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. This
thank you, Christian, for being here.
Was amazing. Obviously, we didn't have the full bottles, but I mean, we enjoyed a lot these wines. Some of them I already know, like Tramin or Poggiale Mura, but all the producers was very nice. And I mean, what I can say, all the wines that I tasted today, I really liked. So, and it's not a thing that you can find in every wine tasting. And so I'm really happy to participate today. Thank you.
Grazie, Christian. Thank you very much for being here and for your comments. What I was thinking, you know, it's not easy because we jumped in different regions and there are different style of wines. But I think what can make the connection, I think, honestly, is the quality and is the passion that there is behind the project. There are producers stronger in terms of volume, but I think in the same way, they cultivate the passion of their land and their position. You can see from their eyes when they want to make, you know, the exposition and talk about their wines and their estate. What did you think, Andreas? It was the first time for you participating in a virtual tasting.
Hi. So,
hi,
yeah,
nice to meet you.
First virtual tasting. I've done a lot of full wine tastings while still being a wine buyer in London. So I know some of the wines. I've had the chance to taste quite a few vintages of Fulini before. I think it was really cool, really well organized and well structured, because I know once you let the people with the passion, the ones that are making the wines, it's easy to start talking about them for half an hour and even longer. So it was nice to keep everyone within their 15 minutes or so. And some really nice wines, actually. And same with all the pandemic, I really missed being able to taste quite a few wines at one sitting without having to do extensive shopping, you know, and being able to see that the world doesn't stop and the beautiful wines are still being produced and introduced into the market. One of the questions was, because in the last few years while I was still in London, I had the feeling that the market itself, as in, you know, everyone needs to earn their money. They don't want to wait anymore for the wine to be at the perfect time to be sold. Does that affect the production in Brunello as well?
Well, that's a good question. There are still producers connected with us. I don't know if Riccardo, do you want to answer?
Yeah, why not? It's actually a very good question, and it's always a question that we receive since many years. Yes, so Brunello needs 5 years before you can release, or roughly 4 years and a few months to release it. And when we release it, also because of the rules that we have, the wine should be ready to drink. But at the same time, it's suitable for aging. And this is the great thing about, I'm talking about Brunello, but there are hundreds of examples from Italy and from all around the world. I think that it's also very personal. So there are consumers who love young wines and other consumers who want their wines to age for a long time or for a specific time. If you go to in Langhe and if you ask some producer in Piedmont about when should I drink your Barolo, the answers can be different. Wait 10 years, wait 30 years, drink now because I have to sell also the newest vintages. Choose by yourself.
The driver behind the question, because luckily, like you said, with the Brunello, it's pretty much ready to drink as soon as you release it. Some Barolos you cannot drink earlier than 20 years. They're just...
Yeah, but we talk about also the amount of tannins that usually you can find in the Barolo. They are higher compared to a Brunello di Montalcino. But at the same time, it's sometimes the restaurant owners, they say, oh, we should receive the wine when it's ready to drink. Well, it's also difficult to do something like this because we all need rotation. Our job is to produce wine, to sell wines, to be able to also to continue to produce the wines. So it's kind of a controversial. I can even store the wine for 20 years. I can release it. And then I find one consumer who say, but don't you have anything younger? Because I don't like aged wines. So again, it's extremely personal. Also, the winemaking style is personal. But I think that with COVID, what happened is that people started to, of course, drinking less in restaurants. Many restaurants were closed, but they were buying even more expensive bottles to drink at home. And they were choosing, they were tasting, and they were finding their comments on the wine that could take more time to be ready. I personally think that on a Brunello, if we take a 2014 very rainy and fresh vintage, you don't need to wait for 10 years until the wine is nice to drink. Now it's extremely elegant. But then you take a hotter vintage like the 2015, and if you wait 10 years, you are going to have a lot of tertiary notes, truffles and mushrooms and forest floor, that they will make the wine softer, rounder, and more complex. But again, I think it's really personal.
And I think it's a lot changed also, guys, because like we were saying about the 2012 vintages from Livio Sassetti, they used to make in a warm vintage a small maceration. So it's like a trend that wines need to be ready before, but trying to, bring in your matrix in the wine all the complexity you need. So it's a different approach from in the last years, and the idea is always to have a great wines without all the hard part to digest. There is still Michael connected with us. Michael, thank you very much for being with us during all our virtual tasting.
You're welcome.
There was something that you enjoyed in a particular way, and if you need to pick up 2 wines, one for lunch and one for dinner, what are you going to keep?
Well, first I have to say that I had several tastings like that online with small bottles, and I think that's not, but what you did was first the quality wines, but I think that's clear, that's self-explicable, but the time you gave everybody to explain it and taste it with the people, because I had tastings with Austria, which was very difficult to talk to the people. I knew some wines, honestly, like Argiano, sorry for my Italian, it's not very good, for Argiano, Banfi.
Sorry for my English, and there was a lady good tasting.
And
it's
Planeta.
really good to your Italian.
What I I personally think the wines from Sassetti were the most astonishing, because I never had the chance tasting wines 2007 and 2012 from Brunello. And that was the most amazing thing. And what would I eat with it? Well, meat. Asato, as you say it in English, yes. Because I think for the Montalginos, Brunello di Montalginos, that's one of the best things. Or, as we call it here, a meditative wine for meditation, just sitting by a fireplace and drinking it, because the wines are extraordinary. I have to make a great compliment to you and the wine producers.
Grazie. Thank you very much, Michael. For your time, first of all, because it's really important. It's what we have best, I think, in our life. It's one of the most important things to preserve. It's our time. Thank you very much to all the producers that stayed with us for our virtual tasting. I hope they enjoyed, because the idea is to give to every one of you the different bottles, so to stay with us and don't be bored about the tasting only your wines. And actually it's something we are still growing. We need to decide how to keep this form. The idea is to be back as soon as possible live with the tasting in the different market. If there is some comments more, I will be really happy to listen. Also to keep growing. I know it was a little bit, tough to taste all these wines together. Sometimes we forgot, because we tasted a lot of wines during the day, and we are maybe more dedicated into this kind of job. But I think it's a unique experience, and we get it our time to make it. Paolo, do you have some feeling that you want to?
I think, I mean, I had already the experience on March or April, I believe. So it's a confirming again, this virtual tasting is really incredible. Like, you can discover maybe a different wines, but you can discover the idea, the opinion from the producer. I mean, it's not the same when you have the feeling with the contact, like you are in present with the producer, but still a great opportunity to understand how is the philosophy, how is the wine made, So I believe is incredible, because you have the time, you relax, you have the time to think about it, and you can feel it if the wine is good for you. I mean, is great for you. So I believe this is a great chance thanks to you, I mean, to this project, because we need this kind of virtual tasting that, and for the producer, they have advertising around the world, because these wines are great. Even if some wines maybe is not your cup of tea, as I can say in English, but for sure we can say that all the wine that we taste today are great wines.
Thank you very much, Paolo. Thank you very much for your words. Mariam is still connected. Correct me if I am wrong on your name. It's a pleasure to see you still here with us. Can you introduce yourself and tell us what do you think about the virtual tasting, if you like it to listen the story direct from the producers?
Thank you, Raffaele. I'm really grateful to be here. Yes, it's Marijam.
Marijam, okay.
I'm from Rare Wine. This is a wine club in Zurich, and we organize also online tasting with producer. But this is quite special because we have 8 producers at the same time, and the opportunity to listen to different histories. And it's really a tour that we were traveling to different regions, and that's great. We not only taste wines, but also you were addressing interesting topics about different challenges, make the experience rich. And we are quite happy if you would like also to organize something here with us and to present some of the producers. We had yesterday a tasting with the students from the University of Zurich.
Cool.
About education, we are always hosting events.
That will be great.
Yeah. Yesterday was about Piedmont, so they were tasting Piedmont wines. Tomorrow we have another tasting in our gallery, etc. We like the organized experience, and Friday we have, as you were talking about, pairing the wines with the food and giving this rich experience. We also organize gourmet experience with.
Let's be in touch for sure. And thank you very much for being with us and for your comments.
Thank you all the producers for sharing their amazing stories with us.
Thank you. I think, La Grande Bellezza in the beginning, some people asked me what was the idea, and for sure to present a selection of wines, because we used to taste many wines, and I think there are some of them really representative for quality, for consistency, for idea, and for what they show from the beginning. In the end, actually, also, it was easier maybe talking of 10 wines all made by the same grapes or all made on the same region, because in this way we jumped a lot from the different region. But for sure, I think it's also interesting and unique experience tasting in a small plot of time, lots of different vision. So once again, thank you very much for your presence and your time. Hoping to see you soon as possible in your country or in Italy when you want. We are based in Tuscany. There is Paolo based around the world. Now he's going to leave to go in Milan. And all the producers that we had the chance to taste, for sure they will be happy to host you in their winery. Thank you very much.
We'll be really happy to organize a trip to Tuscany with our club members too.
Just let me know, Marjan. See you soon. Have a good day.
Grazie Raffaele, grazie Paolo per l'organizzazione.
Grazie a te.
Grazie
Patrizia.
a voi tutti.
Ciao a tutti.
Grazie a voi. Grazie a voi.
Grazie mille. Ciao Riccardo.
Ciao, grazie a tutti. Alla prossima.
Ciao Sabina, grazie. Un abbraccio grande a Lorenzo.
Ciao. Certamente. Ciao a tutti.
Ciao.
Ciao Corinna.
Ciao Corinna.
Ciao, grazie.
Lei è timidona, ma è brava.